Hello everyone and welcome to Newegg TV. My name is Paul. Today I'm going to be doing an unboxing and overview of this video card from ASUS. This is the ASUS GeForce GTX750 Ti. Now first off, the 750 Ti is based on NVIDIA's newest Maxwell architecture, and whereas there are going to be lots of different iterations of Maxwell-based GPUs in the future, one of the biggest features of it for now is the TDP, the thermal design power. The wattage that this card draws is significantly lower than previous generations of GeForce GTX graphics cards. In fact, this card only has a TDP of 60 watts, so you're going to find it to be a great drop-in solution for, say, existing systems that don't have a very strong power supply, for example. The version from ASUS here, though, is a custom design. It is overclocked. You get 2 GB of GDDR5 memory, and ASUS is continuing the use of their super alloy power for the chokes and the power delivery, which have 2.5 times the lifespan. This also, of course, supports DirectX 11 graphics, and then over on the right side you can see support for some of the other NVIDIA stuff, such as TXAA, physics, and then again 2048 megabytes GDDR5. Flipping around to the back, we can see a few more indications of the ASUS features. So the dual fan cooling, of course, we'll be taking a closer look at that in just a moment. Super alloy power, and then you can, of course, use ASUS GPU tweak utility if you want to get into overclocking with this graphics card. Finally, here on the bottom of the box, we have required system requirements, I should say, and for that you want at minimum 2 GB of system memory or more for best performance. Motherboard with PCI Express slot. This is PCI Express Gen 3, but you can use it in a PCI Express Gen 2 or 2.1 motherboard, and you won't suffer any performance degradation. Also for operating system, Windows XP, Vista, Windows 7, or Windows 8, 32 or 64-bit. And then again, for the power requirements, pretty minimal here, but 400 watt system power supply with a minimum 12 volt current rating of 20 amps, and you will need one 6-pin PCI Express supplementary power connector for this card. Inside the retail box, you're going to get this ASUS speed setup guide if you want a little bit of assistance in getting the video card installed. Also, the driver and GPU tweak software available on this disc, although I would recommend going to the NVIDIA website to download the latest driver and to the ASUS website to download the latest version of GPU tweak for overclocking. Next up, the graphics card itself, and as this is a custom design solution from ASUS, you will notice some pretty significant differences if you're comparing this to the NVIDIA reference design. First off, the cooler on top. This is not a direct CU cooler from ASUS. You might have seen those with some of the higher-end cards, as it does not have the copper heat pipes, but it still does have a very substantial aluminum fin stack there right underneath, as well as a dual fan cooling solution. So these are going to be downward firing directly over the aluminum fins that are right below that. Size-wise, the card measures about 8.5 inches from the bracket down here to the end of the cooling solution. That's about 215 millimeters, by the way. And then each downward firing fan is about 75 millimeters in diameter. Another thing that you might notice if you're looking at this card from the side, well, you got the power connectors right there, of course, for the fans. You have the PCI Express Gen 3 connector right down there at the bottom. And then flipping around to the opposite side, you will probably notice the 6-pin PCI Express Graphics or PEG connector. Again, make sure you have that available from your power supply so you can plug that in and make sure this card gets the power that it needs. Flipping over to the bottom, you can see the PCB, which is a pretty much black in color. They have some Phillips head spring-loaded screws right there, keeping the cooling solution on, so you can remove that if you need to in the future for cleaning purposes or that sort of thing. And then going back to some of the specs of this card, 750 Ti gives you 640 CUDA cores, and then the reference design model has a base clock of 1020 megahertz and a boost clock of 1085. This is an overclocked version from ASUS, so the base clock is 1072, the boost clock is 1150, and I actually plugged this in and put a load onto it, so I found that it got up to about 1215 megahertz max frequency on the GPU. The memory configuration, again, is 2 GB of GDDR5 memory, and that's on a 128-bit memory interface, which gives you a memory speed of 5.4 gigabits per second. Again, the TDP from the card is 60 watts, and I've been talking a little bit about the cooler so far, but I did also want to point out, since this card draws so little power, it generates very little heat as well. So most of the cooling solutions that I've found on these cards have been more than adequate, and in fact the cards will only get into the mid-50s, mid-50 degrees Celsius range when they're under full load. Again, PCI Express Gen 3 down there for the connection at the bottom, but don't worry if you don't have a motherboard with PCI Express Gen 3, because it is backwards compatible. Then finally here at the back we have our video outputs. As this is a more entry-level card in the discrete GPU market, ASUS has opted to include a full-size 15-pin D-sub VGA connector right there. That is the blue connection point. So if you have an older monitor that still has that connection, you can use that. Bear in mind that's the only connection you can use for analog, because both of the DVI outs right here are dual link, but they're DVI-D only, so they're only going to have a digital connection. No DVI to VGA adapters are going to be working with those particular connection points. However, dual link DVI can support display resolutions up to 2560 by 1600 at 60 Hz. Then finally here you have HDMI 1.4, and that is going to be able to do even up to 4K, although it is limited to 30 Hz max at that, and you can do resolutions below that, so say up to 1920 by 1200 for example, at higher refresh rates like 60 Hz. One other thing to point out with this card is you do get continued support for NVIDIA technologies, such as support for NVIDIA Shield, so you can use this card to stream games from the card to your NVIDIA Shield, or you can use the NVIDIA Shield in console mode, connect that up to your home theater, and then stream games from your gaming PC out to your home theater using your NVIDIA Shield, which is sold separately, of course. I should point that out as well. And that is going to wrap it up for this video, guys. Once again, this has been the ASUS GeForce GTX 750 Ti with the custom designed dual fan cooling solution. I'm Paul with Newegg TV, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to our Newegg TV YouTube channel, as well as all of our other associated channels. Don't forget to like the video and leave me a comment if you like this card or liked the way I talked about it. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.